Hey friends, in this video, you're going to be learning how to create a variable in Thunkable. You're going to learn how to change the variable with blocks and then also display whatever is stored in that variable on your screen. Well, hey there friend, my name is Darren and I host the Thunkable X YouTube channel. We are in the middle of a maze game app series where I am walking you through how I created my first app in Thunkable, and each part of this series is showing you how to do a different thing. In this video, we're going to lay the foundation for the maze screen of our app. We're going to section it out into 3 different sections, and today we're going to work on the top section. In this section, we'll add a button to bring us back home and a label to show our position in the maze. And without further ado, let's get into today's tutorial. Alrighty, so as you can see in our last video, I showed you how to create this start screen, and I showed you how to add a button that will bring you to another screen. So we started out with the start screen, and today we're going to be working on the maze screen. Now to start this out, we're going to set the background picture of the screen to the grass.png. We added this in the last video. If you would like to get this picture, I will share a link where you can download all of the pictures used in this series in the description. All right, our next step is going to be adding in 3 different sections to this screen. And I'm going to be using rows for each of these sections. So I will drag these into the Thunkable tree. All right, now I'm going to label each of these with header, maze, and footer. Alrighty, and now we are ready to start working on the header section. All right, let's start out with adding a button to this section. And we will go ahead and style the button and adjust its properties. So for this button, I'm going to set the text to home, the text color to white. We're going to set the background color to transparent. We'll set the font size to 20, and that should cover it for the properties of the button. Let's go ahead and adjust the blocks for the button. So in the blocks tab of the maze screen, I'm going to grab the navigate to block, and then I'm going to navigate to the start screen. So that's good. But when do I want to navigate to the start screen, our home screen? I want to do this when the home button is clicked. So right now I have this, or haven't renamed the button, it's just labeled button 1. But what this will do is when button 1 is clicked, it will navigate to start screen. And just to make this clear for the future, let's go ahead and rename this to button home. Alrighty, next let's go ahead and add that label I told you about to this section as well, this header section. So I'll drag that into the Thunkable tree, and then we'll go ahead and adjust the properties for this as well. I will rename this label to label position. We'll set the text to position. We'll be adjusting this text later, but this will be a placeholder. The font size to 20. Text color to white, and background color to transparent. And the last thing I want to do is adjust where these display in this section. So I'll click on the section row. All right, so I'll scroll down to the bottom of the properties. Where is it? Justification. I'm looking for you. Where? Oh, I think they renamed it. What? All right, so it looks like justification is now horizontal alignment. Alrighty, you gotta adjust a little bit here live on the tutorial. And then, so horizontal alignment, formerly justification, will now be space between, and vertical alignment will be top. You know, honestly, this is a lot clearer, so I actually like that. That's a good change. All right, so now we have the button, the label looking, and they are placed where we want them to be. So now let's make them do things in the blocks tab. All right, so with our blocks, I told you we're making a maze game. And so one of the things that we're going to need to track is where we are at in the maze. So my approach to this is using a grid. So you can think of this as like an XY coordinate plane. So we're going to track, how many steps along the X line am I horizontally, and how many steps across the Y line vertically am I. So there's basically 2 variables I want to track, the horizontal and the vertical. Or if you're familiar with math, we often call these x and y. So I'm going to create two variables called x and y and set them each to null to start out with. And then I will just duplicate this. And so now we have two variables, x and y, set to null. And so these are going to be what's going to track our position. Now, I promised you I was going to show you how to change variables within your code. You change things when something happens. So for this example, we're going to be changing the variables whenever the screen starts. So if we come down here, this is the maze screen. So I'll go to the maze bucket. And whenever the maze screen starts, I want to change these to the starting position. So the maze screen starts, I want to change my position to the starting position of the maze. So let's go to the variables bucket where I grab the initialize variable name, and let's grab the set to block. So I'm going to set x2, and I'm using numbers. So set x2 2. We'll duplicate that, and then we're going to set y to 3. Now I'll go ahead and show a picture here on the screen of the simple maze that we're going to be creating, and you can see that we are starting in position x equal to 2, y equal to 3. Now back to the blocks, you might ask, Darren, why did you not just set x and y up here to 2 and 3? Well, my answer to you is because I wanted to make this so that I could expand the app in the future. So if at some point in time I didn't want to start from 2 and 3, then I could just set these whenever the screen starts based off some other logic. So that's why I decided on this approach, but there's definitely other ways to do it. All right, and the last thing I promised you in this video was I was going to show you how you could display what you have stored in a variable on the screen. Now for this, I'm actually going to use a function. Now it might not make a lot of sense right now, but it's going to help us in the future videos. And this whole function, we're going to expand on it later on, but I'm going to call it display current cell. So whenever we call this function, a function is something that you can reuse, that you can call from different places in the app. But it's basically code that you want to reuse in different places. So display current cell. And so for now, we're just going to be updating the label with our current position. So how do we do that? Well, we need to find our position label right here. And we're going to set text to, so I'm going to grab the from position label, set text to block. And then we want to display 2 and 3. And in math, I studied a lot of math in college, we always do x comma y. And so we're actually going to do that here just the way I like to do it. And the way that we can do that is in the text bucket, grab the join block. And then I need three slots here. So I'm going to click on the gear icon, drag an item. That's going to give me 3 slots. I'm going to throw away this block here. And then this middle one will just be comma space. So it'll give me that x comma y. And then here, I just need to add the x and the y. And I can do that by going to the variables and pulling in the x, duplicate, and adjust to y. But wait, we are not done. We have just created a function that changes the text of the label, but what we have not done is told the app when to do that. So we call a function when something happens. And so we're going to call this whenever the maze starts. So I'm going to come to functions, and you can see here, display current cell. It's created a block for this now that I've created a function. But we need to decide when to call this. Now we could call it before, but what would that do? That would just display the current cell. Well, right here, x and y are currently set to null or nothing. So it wouldn't be actually displaying what we want. We want to call display current cell after we have updated x and y. And so now, whenever the app starts, it's going to initialize 2 variables, x and y, to null. And then when we get to the maze screen, when the maze screen starts, it's going to set X and Y to 2 and 3 respectively. And then it's going to call display current cell. And then it's going to jump down to our display current cell function. And then in that function, it says from position label, set text to X, Y. All right, and now let's test and see how our updates turned out. So this was from before. We already had this. Let's click on Let's Begin to go to the maze screen. Alrighty, so now we see the background that we set. We also see two things at the top. One that says Home, and then in the top right, we see 2, 3. So the 2, 3 is our position. So whenever the screen started, it set the variables X and Y to 2 and 3, and then displayed those on the screen. And then when I click Home, I would expect to go back to the home screen. And it does. Alrighty, well now you know the basics of creating a variable, changing the variable, and displaying what's in that variable on the screen. But are you interested in what's next? Well, if you are, I've created a step-by-step guide on how to create this app start to finish. That is available to you through the link in the description. But if you don't want to download that free guide, you'll just have to wait until the next video. Happy coding.